If you don't have kids. If you don't, sorry. Everybody's just staring, looking at me like, really? I want to be able to maybe spit on you if I start screaming or something, yes. Thank you guys. See, this is good. I get to see your faces. Thank you. All right. Perfect. Yeah, come on up. Right up here, there's 3 right in the front for you. All right, sorry guys, make you feel uncomfortable, the ones that sat in the back, but I want you guys up close because you guys were so spread out. Again, the ones with kids, I get it. Sometimes it's easier if you have to kind of get under the ear and take them outside real quick. I've had kids, I get it. I've had boys, Blake and Sharina, you have 3. God bless you, Although when they get to teenage years, boys are for me, they were easier than girls. She doesn't think so, but they were. All right, so tonight I want to kind of we've been going through abiding in co-union, so I want to kind of continue on that vein. We're going to veer off. The Lord took me in some different directions, but it'll all fit. So Tanner, last week he was talking about, he brought it more into the fact of a lot of times when we teach on abiding in co-union, we want to hear of okay, when I abide with him, that means the power is going to run through me. That means gifts are going to run through me. And that's all correct. It's all true. But abiding in co-union should show our character reflects more of the Lord. We should be able to see, when things start coming against us, things start happening, we should be able to recognize. We might not be perfect, I get that, but we should recognize, wow, I handled that situation different this time than I did 10 years ago. Because let me tell you, those situations the Lord will bring back around. But we can't get frustrated if they don't happen perfectly, if we don't handle them perfectly. But we can always see, wow, I've seen where I did better. I saw where I got over it more, faster and things like that. Or maybe I didn't dwell on it or cause a drama in my head longer, or be frustrated as long as I would have. Especially moms, you can start to see, wow, I'm learning and doing differently. Kids are a great way to pull things out of you and grow you and shape you and realize, wow, I don't have the Lord's character yet, Spouses do it too sometimes. Tanner loves poking at me. So I've just realized, the things that are needed in the church, we've had the power at times in the church, but I also think we have a generation that is recognizing if the church is fake or if it's real. We have a generation, we have the younger people that can come in, and what's crazy is sometimes they can be more discerning than those in the church. And they're this isn't real. What they're saying, what they're preaching, they're not living what they're saying. And it's time for us to be the real church and for us to, become that. And during worship, don't want to embarrass you, but Wesson, the Lord started talking to me about you during worship. And you carry the heart of Jesus. You have a kind and compassionate heart. And as you grow older, and you get around guys and men and things like that, and some men might not have that compassionate heart, don't ever look at them and think, oh, that's a real man. He's a little rough around the edges. Because Jesus was compassion and kindness wrapped in flesh. And he was the man we all want to be like. And he was Wesson has my heart. He's filled with kindness and he's filled with compassion. So let's all be like Wesson. A few nights ago, I had a dream. And in the dream, I was talking to a guy that I actually know personally. And so the dream inside of it had things that were in the natural, had to really happen in real life. But the Lord then started kind of just unveiling some things to me. So let me in the dream, I was walking with this young man. And some years ago, so this is in the natural, some years ago I had a conversation with this young man, and we started talking for, I would say we've been on the phone for 30 minutes, and he was telling me scriptures from the Torah, and I knew that for a time he didn't believe in the Lord. He grew up going to church. He grew up believing in the Lord, but then he got hurt by the church and turned his back on the church. And so as I was talking to him, I was like, oh my goodness, like he's actually talking about God knowing the hairs on your head and all this kinds of stuff. And then all of a sudden, about 30 minutes into the conversation, he said something, and I was like, oh, we're not talking about the same God. And I realized Islam also reads some of the, the Torah and things like that. And through our conversation, I realized, oh, he wasn't talking about Yeshua. He wasn't talking about Jesus. And so then back into my dream, I'm walking with him, and he ends up saying, there's a lot of chaos that's happening around me in the dream. And he says to me that he doesn't want like any part of the church. And I start declaring to him, I just start saying, the church has become a stage and it's become production, but the real church is waking in this hour. And I start yelling it and declaring it like the real church is waking in this hour. And a lot of times we end up hearing those statements and we think about like the church building and the stage and the pastor. But I think what the Lord is saying is the church, the people in the church, that we will actually become one that abides and is in co-union with Christ. That it's no longer just that man that's up there preaching, or woman, but it's actually the entire body of Christ that becomes those that abide and are in co-union with Christ. But for so long, the church hasn't been the church. That's why when 9/11 happened, so many people ran to the church because they knew where hope was. But we've seen, it's like 40% has fallen off since 2000 that attend churches. And now it's more of like, oh, I really don't claim a religion. I'm just, I follow whatever and I'm okay with whatever. And we've watched the decline in the church. And it's crazy how in our world we can see when disaster happens and chaos happens, they really do know where to go to. But for some reason, they don't stay. So they know where to run for hope, but we can't end up, fully getting them locked in with the Lord. But I feel like if each one of us would start being those that abide and are in co-union with Christ, and we actually understand what he's saying for us, how to walk it out, to say what he says. Jesus walked it on the earth, not just to show us he could do it. He walked it out on the earth as a man who laid his divinity down to show us we could do it. It's not just to heal. Yes, that's part of it. It's not just to prophesy and evangelize. Yes, that's part of it. But it's to forgive. It's to overcome. It's to have kindness, goodness, compassion, and love. And Jesus says, what is it for you to love those that are lovable? But what about those that are nasty? Can you love those? Because that shows you're a true believer, if you can love those that aren't lovable. I said I'm going to repeat some things. Probably a month or two ago when I preached, I talked about the Lord coming and into the earth, and he's going to shake some things. He's going to shift some things. Like we always think, let's shake and shift everything that's in the world, but he's going to come to the church first. And we're watching it in spirit-filled communities. If you're on any kind of social media the last few months, you've watched some things happen. Some things get exposed at men's conferences and stuff like that. And you're just like, what is going on? And these are Pentecostal churches. And the Lord is going to come and he's going to deal with the stuff in the church first. We love when God messes things up and we declare it and we pray for it and we're like, God, come and tear down all religion. Come and shake things. And he's like, but can I shake it in your life? And then we're like, whoa, wait a second. Not me. Go do it to my neighbor, Go do it to my pastor or go do it to the world, to the White House. We like declaring that, right? Let's go shake the White House because, Lord knows it needs it. But he's going to come to his house first. He's going to come to all of us. And when I say house, tonight, I don't want us to have in the mind other churches. Why don't we just look at our own selves? Because a lot of times we like to come in and be like, go shake that church. What about us? What about if I want to represent Jesus? Then I want to say, shake anything in me that doesn't manifest who you are. And my reactions prove to myself that I don't always respond like Christ would. So let's deal with that tonight. I'm not going to sit there and go say, deal with that person that hurt me and hurt my offense or caused me to have offense or anything like that. He's like, how about I don't let them even see that they hurt you and I don't let them apologize to you, because let's just see if you can forgive them without even having an apology. And I'm like, but I can forgive them if they ask for forgiveness. He's like, no. What if I never have them? And he literally will be the one that can block it at times, because all he wants to do is get to your heart. He wants to get to us. So he's like, when we stand in the throne room and we stand in front of the Lord, we don't get to have all those people around us and we say, well, what about this person? Well, what about this person? He's like, no. I'm just talking to you. We're not going to worry about that. How did you react to your mom or your dad or your boss when they said that? How did you react? Were you Christ-like in that moment? How did you react to your spouse when they did that? Were you Christ-like in that moment? So that's what he's been kind of dealing with me. We love when he comes and shakes things up until it's disorderly, it's not timely, it's not in our way or our order, and it looks messy. We like it to be clean. For some of you that have been around here for a while, in December, the Lord started speaking to me that 2024 was going to be the year of the shift, which I had already, we've talked about that, but he also talked about divine disruptions. And it's so funny because we're like, yes, divine disruptions. But do you know that the word disruption is, in dictionary.com, it's a disturbance, a problem which interrupts and interferes with a process, a radical change to an existing industry or market. So if God, he's the divine, if he's going to bring divine disruptions and disturbances this year, we think it sounds amazing, but usually we have to hold on. Because if you're the person that has a plan, you have a path, and you have a process, and then he's like, I'm going to come in and bring some divine disruptions. What about our apostle moving? Some of you might be like, oh, God's like, divine disruption. You had a process, you had a path, and you had a plan. He's like, but a divine disruption is coming. Can we trust him in that? But a lot of us, our reactions in situations show we don't fully trust him. I know mine do. And he's like, do you trust me? And I'm like, like as I'm crying and mad and frustrated about whatever the situation might be. And he's like, your reaction is showing something different. You said, bring the divine disruptions. Now I'm going to let them happen, but will you trust me in them? See, the Lord needs to disrupt things in our life. If you want to turn to Jeremiah 17, and today I'm going to give a couple seconds. Usually I realize I say a chapter and then I just start reading and everybody's still turning. So Jeremiah 17, verses 5 through 8. Verse 5, thus says the Lord, cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his strength, whose heart turns away from the Lord. He is like a shrub in the desert and shall not see any good come. He shall dwell in the parched places of the wilderness, in an uninhabited salt land. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. He is like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots into the stream. He does not fear when heat comes, for its leaves will remain green. He is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit. I'm going to go back up to verse 5. Cursed is the man who trusts in man, makes flesh his strength, whose heat turns away from the Lord. The Passion Translation commentary says to place your confidence in the strength of man means that you are turning your heart away from God. The word curse there, I thought it was interesting. If you look it up in the Hebrew, there's actually 7 different words in the Hebrew words that are used for the word curse. This one specifically is A-R-A-R, arar. It's not an evil omen. Because I'm like, God, you're going to curse somebody? It's not an evil omen like other words for the word curse, but it's banned, cut off from purpose, hemmed in with obstacles, isolated. Such is the life lived in self-confidence without trusting in God. So if you trust in man instead of trusting in God, there's a good chance you are not actually going to get to your destiny. Because God's like, you're going to put your trust in that person instead of me. Now, here's the thing I want you to hear. Does God put family together? Does God put people together to even puts purpose? Like my purpose, some of my purpose is unlocked in my kids. Some of my purpose is unlocked in Tanner. Some of our purposes unlock with each other working side by side because God put Adam and Eve together. He put family together for us to be in purpose together. So don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that you aren't to be working with each other. And there's purpose with working with each other. But when we put that man above God, that's where you won't fulfill what you need to do because you've now put man before God. The word is also used when Noah curses Canaan. When Noah is found naked and Ham goes and tells his brothers, and the brothers goes and covers his nakedness. And I was like, why would you curse your own son and grandkids? That word, because I think of it being an omen or something like that, but what that curse is you will never fulfill your destiny. You will be hemmed in with obstacles. Do you know who the land of Canaan is now? Now, I'm not saying that if they accept Jesus that they're still under that curse. The blood of Jesus breaks every curse, okay? But I do know that that curse is still going on today. We can see it in people in the Middle East. And it's because obstacles are placed in their way. They are hemmed in. They won't find their destiny until they find Jesus. Also in Malachi 2:2, priests that brought in sick and lame offerings. These were priests that were supposed to be bringing in offerings with no blemish, but instead they were bringing the blind, the lame, and the sick offerings to the Lord. The priests then at that time were cursed with this word. They will not find their purpose. They will be hemmed in with obstacles because they chose to bring sick and lame before the Lord. The word blessing there, so blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. That word blessing is prosperity, happiness, contentment, grants us the power to do Yahweh's will for our lives. Blessed is the man who trusts in Yahweh, and Yahweh becomes his trust. That is where you will find your purpose. That is where you will find your destiny. Can we unlock it in others? I've seen it this week. There were 3 different things specifically. I've never had this happen this much. It was really interesting. This past week, I prayed to the Lord for 3 different things. One was an answer, and the 2 other things were different situations. And it's interesting. Every single time, the Lord did not give me an answer. But someone would either call me or I would run into someone and they would actually give me the answer that I would be praying to the Lord about. And I was like, oh my goodness, he literally sent someone. So we get things from people. The Lord puts us together and ties us in. But my trust could not be in that person. My trust can't be in a prophet. My trust has to be in the Lord because the prophet doesn't have a word unless it's from the Lord. So those kinds of things, we have to kind of understand the balance of it. Trusting in man or in yourself equals cursed, where you will not find your purpose. You'll be hemmed in with obstacles. This is God's grace. See, we think of it as something evil, but it's actually God's grace. His grace is that when we begin to trust in man, purpose is not found. Fulfillment will not be fulfilled. You will not be satisfied because you're looking into a man to give that to you, or even yourself. But when we look to the Lord, he then will fulfill it. This was an interesting analogy that I kind of thought of, and then Tanner turned on a message yesterday, and the guy actually used the exact same analogy, and he was speaking about something so differently. But when you so there's a purpose in all of life. There's law and order. If you take fish out of water, they will die. If you take oxygen away from mammals, they will die. If we are to be in co-union with the presence of the Lord, we will slowly die if we are taken out of that. I don't mean in the natural. Of course, everyone dies in the natural. But your spirit man will slowly be depleted. When you take away its life source, you'll cease to be what you were created to be. The Lord put you here on the earth for a purpose. Micah 4:1-2, you don't have to turn there. It shall come to pass in the latter days that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established as the highest of the mountains. It shall be lifted up above the hills, and people shall flow to it. Many nations shall come and say, come, let us go to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. See, he doesn't say in the latter days men will be drawn to the house of men. You know how many churches are built because man just wanted to start his own thing? It needs to be a house of the Lord. That's where men will go to. But in Babylonian culture, there was a thing called a ziggurat. The ziggurat were temples that men built to gods, to other gods. That's literally what the Tower of Babel was. It was like a ziggurat. And so we think that some of our temples were the first ones, but the Babylonian culture, all the cultures had different temples to their gods, and they were ziggurats. And I just wonder how many men have built a ziggurat on the earth, and the Lord's like, and you slap the name church on it. He's like, but I never told you to do that. It's to the house of God that men should be drawn to, and not man building his own thing. The Tower of Babel was a man trying to build his own tower. And that's where the language became scattered. So we have to be careful in what we're building and what we do. And are we doing it? Is man doing it unto himself? Or is he doing it even for the applause of others? We see that as well. John 3:16. We all know that verse very well. Everyone knows John 3:16. The word believe there, for God gave his beloved Son, that whoever believes shall not perish but have everlasting life. The word believe there is pisteo. It's to trust in his words, faith in. What I've realized this past year of my life is I say I trust God, but my reactions sometimes show me differently. In this past year, the Lord has shaken a lot of things in my life to say, you say you trust me, but your actions are showing you otherwise. And I'm like, Tanner's no, I'm like, just leave me alone. I need to go in my room. So I go in my room, shut the door, and I cry it out with God. And I'm like, there have been times I'm like, I should trust you in this moment, but this is happening and I'm scared. Or this is happening and I'm mad. This is happening, and I'm really frustrated that this hasn't been dealt with yet. And he's like, but do you trust me? Because if you trust me, you'll calm yourself down, and you'll let me finish the process. But a lot of times, we get so worked up because we're not watching this thing fully end and let the process happen and let it develop. So we start to get upset. We start to get worked out. Let me tell you, I've done it with my own kids. There was a time when Taylor was learning to drive, and she was she had already learned to drive, but she was staying out later because she was 17 or 18. And we were in DFW, the highway systems were bad, and I couldn't sleep until she came home. And I feel like as a good mom, you shouldn't go to bed till your kids come in that door. And I didn't think a good father should go to bed too, but this man went to sleep. And so I was very frustrated. And then I put all of my stress on him. And I was like, if you were a good dad, I think I said that, you would stay up and you would worry until she came home. And he's like, huh? And I was like, no, you should. That's what a good parent does. A good parent worries until the kid drives home and comes in the door, is safe. She's a 17-year-old beautiful girl out on her own, and her curfew's midnight. Well, then, so I kind of put that on him. So he started asking the Lord, am I flippant? I'm probably should give the mic to you because you could probably, do you want to tell it? No? Go ahead. Okay. I'll use Jenn translation. But he was like, I should probably be worrying. Jenny's saying that I should be, and I'm just going to sleep. Like, do I care? That's what I was thinking. And the Lord was like, no, you trust me. And he went to sleep. I don't know if he told me the very next day. It might have been a few days. And then he told me, and I was like, wasn't the Lord? I started praying about it, and it took a while. It took me having to calm my inner self down and being like, does God love my daughter more than I do? Do I think that? So then I had to deal with that. Does he love my kids more than I do? Yeah. So why am I stressing so much? I was taught that's what parents do. Love you, Mom and Dad, but they are stressors. If anything happens in my family or there's like maybe a doctor's visits we have to have, my mom knows now. I do not tell her until after we get the good report because she will put all of her worry on me. So I've realized for me to stay in peace mode, I don't tell my mom everything until later, until it's already taken care of. Because we realize as parents, we can put that on other people and we can put on our spouses and all of that. But we've helped each other and we've been able to help guide each other okay, I'm watching you go to sleep. So what I would do is I would slowly calm myself down. I would set my alarm to midnight and I would go to bed. And it took a while, but I would finally fall asleep. And then it was easier to go to sleep each time because I would go to bed saying, God, I trust you with Taylor. God, I trust you with Taylor. I trust you. And I would finally fall asleep and my alarm would go off at midnight. I would check, did she text? Yes, she's home. And then if they didn't text and I found out they were in bed asleep, Trent got this a few times, I would, why didn't you text me? My heart rate just exploded when I looked at 1 a.m. and no one texted me they were home. But I watched myself grow. And I watched with my boys now, after growing and going through the process with Taylor, that I can go to sleep a lot faster. And so you watch that process as a mom. When you think it's your job to worry and stress, and it's your job to have care and concern. And yes, maybe stay up, but not if it was in full worry. And so I had to go through, that was one of the things the Lord walked me through of, do you trust me? I had a mom tell me once, she was a good friend, and her son was going into a scary situation for a few years. And she told me, I remember, it's so odd when you hear someone actually say it, but she's like, I can't trust God with my son. I've got to intervene. And it's so funny that we would be like, I can't believe she said that. But the truth is, don't we do that a lot? Let's hit on a few things. If you trust God, did you lie on your taxes? Did you manipulate numbers? That's different. Exactly. I love that. We walked through this process, right? Yep. Did you lie on your resume? Did you manipulate a text to someone for there to be correction towards someone else or something to be dealt with, and you need to manipulate the words just a little bit to get what you wanted done happen, you didn't trust the Lord. You can always break these things down with, do you trust God? Because if you trust God, you wouldn't lie on your taxes, because you would know this is the money I made, these are my deductions, this is everything, and if this is the amount I have to pay, this is the amount I have to pay, and he will take care of it. If I trust God, I don't need to lie on the mileage of my car when I sell it. All the men are laughing. They're like, oh yeah. If I trust God, I don't need to lie on my resume. I don't need to manipulate a friendship to make something happen. I don't need to manipulate a relationship. But see, what's crazy is we would think this stuff's in the world. But man, oh man, is it in the church. Because it's a little white lie. It's just a little manipulation. But a little manipulation is a lie. I've watched it in text and conversations and prophetic like nothing. It's crazy. And God says there are 7 things I detest. 2 of them on there are lies. But we have become comfortable in the church. His body, the head is Jesus, and his body has become comfortable with white lies and manipulation. He's like, if you will manipulate, you are saying you don't trust me. If you lie, you're telling me the basis, the foundation is you don't trust me. So when the mom says, I can't trust God with my child, I need to step in, the first thing I thought of was like, I cannot believe she said it until I do something. And I realize, wow, I guess I don't trust you in that area. So God, why don't you come in? Why don't you shake me up a little bit? Because I don't want to see. John 3:16, the verse that we use for salvation, and the literal foundation of that word, pisteo, believes is trusting in him. But we don't go down to the root of what trust actually is. We stay at the basis. I trust you. I have faith in you. Sure, God, I trust you. I sing songs like that. I yell it. I scream it. He's like, but did you lie? Did you manipulate? Because if you did, you don't trust me. This past year, he shook a lot of things in my life. And there was one time I sat down at the computer, and he showed me 2 past memories. And both past memories, I was really, really hurt on a situation. But months after those situations, I was always able to look back and be like, oh, thank you, God. That was like, you saved me. One, which I've talked about openly, so I'll talk about that one. Joey, some of you guys know Joey, Joel you do, and some other people. He's taught at SOH before and things like that. But we all worked at Lifestyle, and I was volunteering. And I was volunteering my behind off and taking off work and doing everything in the green room that I needed to do. And the lady that I was under was actually resigning. And so I knew there was a job opening. So I was like, thank God, I want to work here. And so I was super excited. And then the head guy, Tom, called me during that time. He's like, hey, there is this kid in California who William really likes, and we're going to give him the job. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like a 32-year-old mom who knows how to do a green room, all the snacks and food and all this. This is like some 23-year-old punk kid in California that William likes. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so we were actually driving when Tom called me, and oh man, I was upset. So this past December, I was sitting down, and God brought up that situation and another one. And when I sat down, he was like, do you not see what I'm doing? He said something different, but I'm going to use that term because that's the term I'm going to use publicly. Because what he said to me was private. But in that moment, he flashed before me multiple things that have happened. And I realized by my reactions, me being upset, me being hurt, I didn't trust him in those moments. But once I'm now on the other side, believe me, I thanked God I didn't get that job that I thought I wanted. Poor Joey, he went through a lot. And God's like, I'm protecting you. Like, just pay attention and like be calm and don't get so upset about things. And there were a few other things he showed me, and I've watched things play out this year and last year. And the constant theme is he's whispering, do you trust me? Hey, that hurts, but do you trust me? Man, that stings, but do you trust me? He's like, you don't like the way that feels, do you? You don't like the way this is happening or working out, but do you trust me? And I can look back now on maybe how I reacted a year ago to certain things, to how I'm reacting now, because I can bring myself back and say, man, I trust you. And I take a deep breath, and I watch things start to play out, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel good. I'm like, oh, I trust him with my life. I have no idea about other people. I have no idea if they're doing wrong or what's going on, or somebody maybe have hurt me or whatever, a transition, just all kinds of different things in my life. But I've realized, man, I trust you. I trust you with my life. The John 3:16, the salvation call that we say to people, but so many times it's so hard to actually hear him and do it. He wants to come in and he wants to shake areas of all of our lives. Last year, he shook a lot. We lived 7 months in an Airbnb. And we had to have a 48-hour notice at any point to move out if somebody wanted to move in there. It's a long story, so I won't get into it. But the Lord's like, do you trust me with your housing? There were some position changes, transition changes, and stuff like that. And he's like, but do you trust me? There was an unexpected death in our family. And he was like, but do you trust me? You're like, with death? This kid was 25. Seems a little early. He's like, he's not dead. He's more alive than you ever know. And he's full of joy. Do you trust me? I was like, yes. There have been so many things this past year that all he's done is whisper. I'm going to shake it all. I'm going to shake everything inside of you, Jen. But at the end of the year, you're going to be able to watch chaos happen. And you can stand steady and say, but I trust him. Because I know anything meant for evil, he will turn for good for me. I know that. So a few months ago, I was sitting down with him. It was right after he sat me down and talked to me about trusting him and watching things play out that I thought would play out differently, and they didn't. And I was really upset. And he's like, why do you feel like this equals failure? And I was like, it was a title change. And just a few different things that happened. And he's like, why are you equating that to failure? And I was like, because it is. It's lower. He's like, are you doing exactly what I told you to do? And I was like, yes. He's like, you don't actually understand what success means. You think failure is dependent on what American culture says is failure. He goes, failure is not following my word. Success is doing anything that I ask you to do, no matter how it looks. You go into debt by following me, that's called success. You lose friends for following me, that's called success. You have a job role, a job change, something like that. In the American standard, we say that's failure. He says, I call it success because you're following what I have asked you to do. So he rips so many things, and he's like, you in the American culture, and I would say this is probably in the world, we equate things to what success actually means. He's like, success only is like real is if you're following what I asked you to do. That's what success is. It doesn't matter what your bank account says. It doesn't matter what your followers on Instagram are. It doesn't matter what this is or this is. Success equals following what I ask you to do. And that's one thing that another lens that he had to change inside of me. Success is doing what he said. A lot of you also know that in December, I had a vision of the Scrambler ride. I talked to you guys about the shift and just different things that he's going to change. The last probably, I'd say 2 weeks, and Tanner actually had one too, but it's been constant dreams of things being flipped upside down. Whether it be roller coaster rides that go upside down, whether it be, I had one person come, her name's Lucy. I actually met her in England, and I was carrying a pie, and she came and she flipped it upside down. And I got so mad at her. This is a dream. I got so mad at her that she flipped this pie upside down. The pie still looked great. The crust was no longer there. You could just see the fruit. Do you see what I'm saying? The name Lucy means light. The Lord's like, I'm going to come. My light is going to flip things upside down in people's lives, and it's going to show the fruit of their life. So I want to tell you, hold strong. Recognize that the things he wants to flip upside down, the things he wants to change in your life, it's only to deal with the fruit. It doesn't mean the fruit in the pie, it was still completely edible and still good. Nothing was soured, nothing was bad. But he's like, but the fruit is what I'm getting at. Let's deal with the fruit. He's going to flip some things upside down in our lives. Many times we want to bind the devil and like curse witchcraft and all these kinds of things. And he's like, it's me. He's like, it's me doing it. And so many times if anything goes wrong, we want to say it's the enemy. And the Lord's like, do you think the enemy has that much power in your life? I thought you were my daughter. But see, we give the enemy more power and more like a thought that he's the one involved instead of God. And a lot of times God's like, I'm messing those things up because I want to see how you'll react. I want to come in and I want to poke some things because I want to see if you'll overcome. There were some things last year that I was like, are you not going to deal with this? He's like, nope. I want to see if you'll forgive. I was like, but do you see what they're doing? He's like, but I see what you're doing. Are you going to forgive? It doesn't matter what they're doing. It matters what you're doing with your heart. So let me tell you, he's going to come and mess some things up in our heart. In Psalms 20, you don't have to turn there, but in Psalms, you can write notes, Psalms 24, 3-6, Revelation 4:1, and John 3:12 is all scriptures he's been speaking to me about that you have to come up higher to see what heaven is saying about the situation. See, a lot of times we stay down here in the natural. We get frustrated. We get upset. We see what's going on, and God's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Come up here. Ask me what I'm doing. Ask me what I'm allowing to happen. See, we would think everything, and I understand, the Lord took the hedge away from Job, but the Lord allowed it. There are things in our life that we want to say is the enemy, and it can be, but if God has allowed it, will he turn everything to good? There are things to bind, there are things to come against. But I would tell you in this hour, I think the Lord is shaking things inside the church, inside of all of us, to get to the root of the fruit. He wants to kind of get us ready. If we're going to be the bride, the spotless bride, don't you think he's going to come for us more than anyone else? He's like, let's bring you in. Let's deal with this. Romans 12:2, do not be conformed to this world. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God. The world will try to conform us, but if you have your mind renewed, you'll actually be able to see what is going on. Last week, as Tanner and I were talking kind of about the message, we were driving, I got a picture of 2 oxen yoked. And when oxen are yoked, it's a wood beam that goes across both of their necks. And it's to make all the work easier because they're going to be yoked together. Matthew 11:29, are you weary, carrying a heavy burden? Come to me, I will refresh your life. I am your oasis. Simply join your life with mine. There's that life union. Learn my ways, and you'll discover that I'm gentle, humble, easy to please. You will find refreshment in me, for all that I require of you will be easy and pleasant to bear. The Passion Translation commentary for the yoked is join your life with mind. You bend your neck to work with the Lord, to be in co-union with him. The toiling, kapeo, think about these and think if this is one of you. It's to grow weary. It's to toil. It's to work with effort, bodily or mentally. To labor until worn out and depleted, exhausted. If that's you, he's like, just bow your neck to me. Be yoked with me, and I will give you refreshment. The next word, burden, is fortizzo. It's overloaded, causing someone to literally feel weighed down, to overburden with ceremony or spiritual anxiety. That one was interesting. But he says, bow your neck to me and be yoked with me, and there I will give you rest. I will refresh. And he'll take it, he'll raise up, take, remove, and to bear. So if you feel overloaded, weighted down, burdened, spiritual anxiety, weary, bodily or mental labor, depleted in this season, all there is a bending of the neck to him. And he'll take it on with you because he wants to give you refreshment. He wants to be yoked to you. He wants you to be in that co-union with him. So that way you can picture the two oxen. And there was a missionary that was in another country, and he watched these two oxen that were of two totally different sizes and ages. And he asked the farmer, why is that? And they're like, that the young one is being taught how to work the farms and how to work it. So he's with an older one. The thing is, the younger one thinks he's doing the work, but he's not. It's all the older one, the bigger one. He's the one that's pulling that yoke. He's the one pulling all of the labor. But the young one is learning how to do it. So if we get yoked with him, it'll be easy. It'll be refreshment. And it won't be like an overbearing burden that we feel. If you want to turn to Jeremiah 18. I'm going to start in verse 1. The word came to Jeremiah from Adonai, saying, arise and go down to the potter's house. There I will cause you to hear my words. So I went down to the potter's house. There he was making a vessel on the wheel. Whenever the pot that he was making from the clay became flawed in the hand of the potter, he remade it. He remade it into another pot, as it pleased the potter to make. Then the word of Adonai came to me, saying, O house of Israel, can I not do with you as this potter does? Declares Adonai. Behold, as the clay in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel. The Lord says, come see what I'm doing. I want to show you. There are vessels that I'm reworking in this season, making into another vessel. He says, come into my chamber. There's that Revelation 4. Come up higher and see what I'm doing. See, sometimes when you're on that spinning wheel, you feel like you're spinning. You feel like you're being reworked. You feel like you're being pressed and crushed and put in the fire. And he's like, I'm just making you into a new vessel. But if we get off that spinning wheel too early, the process isn't finished. He's conforming us. He's making you into a vessel of purpose. But a lot of times we want to get out of that process because it's not fun. The word conformed is simorphos. It's by sharing the same inner essence and identity. The Lord literally wants to put you on his potter's wheel and reshape you and conform you into his vessel of purpose, to carry inside of you your essence, the essence and identity of him inside you, a similar behavior, having the same essential nature. Tonight I felt like there was an invitation that the Lord wanted to give. If I could call worship back up. There's an invitation that the potter says, you can come to the potter's wheel. But it's only if you will allow it. Because a lot of times we don't want him to do the molding, to do the reshaping, to do the spinning. But he's like, but if you'll actually trust me in this process, if you'll trust me and come onto the wheel, you might get dizzy. The truth is, if I'm on a spinning ride, I'm going to get nauseous. You might feel like you're going to pass out at times. But he's like, but if you're yoked to me, I will bring times of refreshing. And there's things that each one of us are going through that he's whispering, do you trust me? Do you trust me in the process? Do you trust me as things are spinning? As I'm working out the marred, the flaws, and everything that's inside, that when things start to get shaken, do your reactions show you trust him? Or do your reactions go into fear, hurt, anger? You have a purpose on this earth. But if you want to fulfill it fully, he wants to conform you into his image. There's an entanglement that he wants to do in his union with you to make you like him. And to make you like him is to slowly pluck out all of the things that are still in us of our flesh. I gave you a lot of testimonies of this last year, so I'm not pointing any fingers except at me. I like to give you guys testimonies of my own flaws. But there's things that he wants to shake up inside of you to say, you know, that John 3:16 verse that you repeated in Sunday school, or you repeated last year, or you repeated 2 weeks ago. And he's like, but I'm going to poke at some things because I want to see if you trust me in this process. This is the cool thing. Romans 8:29. For those he foreknew, he was aware of. He also destines from the beginning of time. He foreordained to be molded, that potter's wheel, into the image of his son. So every time you're being molded, you can say, wow, he loved me so much. He preordained, he predestined before all of time to know I'm going to put them on the potter's wheel because I'm going to shape them into my image. He's like, and I'm not going to give up. If they get off the wheel, I'm going to stay right here and they can get back on at whatever time they want to because he'll never leave. And there's times we get off the process and we're like, okay, it hurts a little too much. He's like, that's okay. I'll wait. And then he puts us back on. He's like, you see that pain right there that maybe you got from your dad or your mom? Let's rework that. Do you see where you did that on your taxes? You didn't trust me in finances. Let's work on that. Let's work on trusting. If you guys will stand and close your eyes. I originally was going to have an altar call, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm just going to have you guys stay where you are because this is between you and the Lord. And I want you to invite him in right now. Invite him into the places that you don't trust him. Invite him to come in and reshape and remold those areas, to rework those areas that you can tell, well, I don't trust him. I don't trust him in this area.
In the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil, I surrender. You are breaking new ground. So I yield to you into your careful hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. So I yield to you into your careful hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. Make me your vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. So where there is new wine, there is new power, there is new freedom. The kingdom is here. I lay down my old flames to carry your new fire today. Where there is new wine, there is new power, there is new freedom. The kingdom is here. I lay down my old flame to carry your new fire today. Oh, where there is new wine, there is new power, there is new freedom. The kingdom is here. Lay down my old flame, carry your new fire today. Make me your vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing. All you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. So I yield to you into your careful hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. Lord, I yield to you into your careful hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand.
Yeah, God, we trust you even in the times that we don't understand, even when circumstances don't line up with what you've said and what you've spoken. We trust your word. Even if we might be tested until the time of the word to come through. We trust in you and we trust you. We trust that you are a covenant-keeping God. God, we trust your words. When things do not line up in our life from things you've said, we can go back and we can stand on those words. If our finances don't line up, if our health doesn't line up, if the marriage doesn't line up, God, we know what you've spoken. And God, we choose to trust you. We choose to trust you, and we say, God, shake anything inside of us that doesn't line up with that trust. That we don't trust in ourselves, and we don't trust in a man. But God, you are our plumb line. You are our foundation. Our faith and trust is completely and fully in you. Even if our circumstances are lying, we know that you hold the truth. And God, we say we will go to the potter's wheel and let you remake us into the vessel that you've purposed us to be. And anything inside of us that does not line up with that vessel, we say, God, spin us, mold us, shape us, work it out. Because we are a group of people that say we want to be in co-union and abiding with you in your character. So God, in all the ways that we might have doubt, we thank you that you are a compassionate and kind God. I see him bending down and letting like a 3-year-old, like a toddler child, like that was who you are, running into his arms. And he says, let me carry you. Be yoked with me. Be yoked with me. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I will carry you through all of time. God, we thank you. We thank you. You are a compassionate, loving, gracious, faithful Father. You are a faithful, faithful Father. And we don't just sing it and we don't just say it, but we believe it deep down. And anything inside of us that tries to come against that, we thank you, God, that you are so gracious that you say, I will deal with it. Let me in. Let me in. God, we thank you that we will be conformed. And being conformed is to carry your identity inside of us. So continue the work and continue the conformity, that we might represent you, be ambassadors of you, God, in this earth. God, we thank you and we love you. We love you, Jesus. Thank you, God. All right, guys, we will see you Thursday night at the prayer room from 9 to 11. And after we clean up, if anybody wants to go to Chipotle, we will be in Chipotle. Bye, guys.